Hi, my name is Carolyn Kras, and the PAD taught me creativity and collaboration.
Hello, and welcome to the PAD, brand new PAD podcast. My name is Rob Morgan. I am a teaching professor in the area of scenic design in the Performing Arts Department at WashU. I'm usually never allowed anywhere near audio editing software, but here I am. Don't tell anyone. This is a brand new podcast, as I said. We mean to sort of elevate and celebrate the amazing careers of our alumni from the Performing Arts Department over the years. And that's exactly what this podcast is meant to do. Today's guest, our first guest, is no exception to that. It is Carolyn Kras. Carolyn is an amazing screen and stage writer. She's a Fulbright Award winner, Hotchner Award winner. She has had pieces done all over the globe, and I'm very, very excited to share her story with you all. We'll get into her background, how she came to WashU, but also her incredible career. So with that, please enjoy the first PAD podcast episode, Carolyn Kras. I'm very excited to have Carolyn join us on the PAD podcast, the very new PAD podcast. I don't even know how many listeners we will have by this point, but I'm so excited that you're with us, Carolyn. I've been looking forward to talking to you pretty much all day since I started reading some of your work, reading some interviews and things like that. You are, I assume, proud. I'm going to fill in the word proud. I'm assuming proud alum of WashU and specifically the Performing Arts Department. Can you just talk to us a little bit about how you came to WashU, how you found out about us, and a little bit of your origin story?
Sure. So thank you so much for having me today. I'm very excited to do this. So I grew up in the Chicagoland area, Cicero and Berwyn and LaGrange Highlands, and I always loved writing. And when I was looking at colleges, I remember going to the library and looking through all sorts of college materials. And I remember WashU was one of the only schools to have undergraduate playwriting. And so I thought I have to go to WashU because I really want to do playwriting. And so I applied early decision and luckily I got in, and I had done drama in high school. I had done Illinois State Theater Festival productions and community theater productions and high school productions. And I planned to be pre-law at WashU, but the freshman focus program at WashU just made my theater bug even stronger. And so I ended up being a theater major because of that. So that was the freshman focus program. There was Jeffrey Matthews focus
Right.
acting class and Henry Schwe's theater and the politics of war class. And I remember we went on a field trip to Chicago and saw Love's Labor's Lost, Chicago Shakespeare, and a bunch of indie theaters. And I thought, I have to be a theater major. So I
Nice.
changed my major from political science to drama.
Wow. Wow. So that was like a full, the freshman focus was like a full year of like a full suite of, like you said, classes, but also excursions.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
really nice because you are with the same cohort of people for two classes. So that really gives you kind of a rooting freshman year where you get to know this group of people very well. And you get to know the professors very well because it's a small class. So I thought that was a wonderful freshman program that WashU offered.
Nice, nice. And so from there, you just were hooked by the theater bug. Did you uh, dabble in other areas like minor in poli sci, or did you just fully major in drama?
Yeah, so I ended up getting a poli-sci minor and also a writing minor. So I was also
Oh,
in the Howard Nemeroff program, which is a
yes.
writing program at WashU. So I think every semester in your freshman year, you take a seminar, and that got me interested in different mediums. So in that seminar, you had to write poetry and essays and short stories, and that just really kind of opened the door to many different types of writing. So even though I specialize now in script writing, it was really nice to have that cross training.
Yeah.
And then because of the Howard Nemeroff program, got to take playwriting my freshman year in my spring semester and got to take Carter Lewis's playwriting class. And he was a hugely influential teacher for me. And when I took that class, I thought, yes, playwriting is what I want to do, and ended up taking his upper level playwriting class. And through all of those experiences, ended up getting my MFA from Carnegie Mellon in dramatic writing, which is kind of a combination of playwriting, screenwriting, and TV writing.
Nice.
So that opportunity at WashU really opened the door to my future career.
Yeah, you have an amazing career in screen and stage, which I definitely want to get into. But before we leave Wash U in this sort of, I guess, chronological arc, you were a Hotchner play sort of finalist, or we produced one of your plays while you were still a student. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I got to participate in the Hotchner Festival twice. So, first is a stage reading of my 10-minute play Reticence, which is about two people who are married who have kind of lost the spark of their relationship, and they're finding that their dinner conversation has kind of lulled, and then kind of finding
Hmm.
their way back to each other. And then so that was the first Hotchner Festival. That was a stage reading. And then the second one was Highness, which is a play about the mentoring relationship between Catherine Parr, who was married to King Henry VIII, and then her stepdaughter Elizabeth, who becomes Queen Elizabeth. So those were just magical experiences for me, being able to partake in a very professionally structured play festival with the PAD faculty serving as directors, and then the PAD bringing in a professional dramaturg to give you notes on your play, and then going through a series of rewrites, and then putting it up on its feet as a stage reading in front of an audience. And then I was lucky enough to be the production selected in the case of Highness. And so a year after I graduated, I got to come back to campus and see the full production that Anna Pileggi directed. And that was so wonderful and very helpful in terms of my journey as a playwright, because I got to see the work on its feet. And it's really hard to learn from your own work unless you see it fully produced at times. So I was
Yeah.
so grateful for that experience.
Yes, yes, yes. I think that's so wonderful. And it's one of the strengths I think of our program is allowing, and I've been involved as a designer on a lot of these to see it go from literally the page to the stage and to see a young writer's work produced and have them see their work produced is just so satisfying. It's just, it's so exciting because it's the first time it's ever sort of, as you said, was up on its feet or ever gets on its feet. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's just electric. Like this is your play that you wrote what 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, and here it is on stage. It's just a great opportunity we have. I think some of the best writers. We've launched a lot of writers' careers, including yours. Elizabeth Birkenmeyer was actually in that show, and she has come back to us. She's not only has a great sort of career of her own as a writer, but she's been helping us bridge the gap, you might say, since the retirement of Carter Lewis, who you talked about, bridging the gap from him to whoever the successor will be and full-time faculty member will be. But it's been great to have her kind of see I guess, she was a young actor in that same play and see her career take off. And my good friend Liz Kramer was your lighting designer for that show, and I've been a Liz Kramer fan for a long time. Um,
Yes, they're both wonderful. And
yeah,
Liza actually ended up going to Carnegie Mellon, which is where I got my MFA. So our years didn't overlap there, but she went through the same MFA program. So
yeah, you're a
yeah,
trailblazer. She's literally following in your footsteps. That's fantastic. So after let's say after WashU, you went to grad school at Carnegie Mellon in creative writing. Is that right? And got an MFA there.
yeah, I got an MFA in dramatic writing, which is in the School of Drama there.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, it's a fine school of drama there. And then what happened? Where did Carolyn go?
So then
As I talk
I
about you in the third person, where did Carolyn
Yeah,
go?
so then after that, I moved to LA. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to go to LA or New York, but I decided to go to LA and eventually applied to the NBC Page program. So I was an NBC Page, so I was the real life Kenneth from 30 Rock. And I got to work on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and I did
Nice.
audience ticketing and crowd control. So I got to see the production every day of Jay Leno putting on a show. And that was great just to see the professional context of how you kind of translate your live theater training to seeing how that works in a live show that's taped every day
Yeah.
for TV.
Wow, that's incredible. And so you kind of set down roots in LA and you've been there ever since, right?
Yeah, I've been in and out of the city. So
Hmm.
I've also spent some time in Chicago doing theater in Chicago. During the Fulbright program, I was in London for almost a year, and then after that, I came back to LA. So I've kind of been in and out of the city for various things.
Nice. And you've been back and forth lately to Chicago, as you said before we started taping that that you're an adjunct teaching writing at DePaul.
Yeah, so I just started last autumn. So I was teaching and I really enjoyed it a lot. So I'm going back for the spring quarter as well. And so I teach screenwriting there and adaptation and a genre class about different genres of screenwriting. So I'm
Nice.
really enjoying that.
Nice. I would love to, if we have time, to talk a little bit about your work. And just how, I don't know, not to say that, and I, as a designer, I kind of feel this sometimes that I don't want to be pigeonholed as like, oh, well, I had a director tell me once, I like how you do Americana. And I'm like, I, I do other things.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to be just the Americana designer, but you have a specific talent and a richness in your work. From what I can tell, and I've talked to Anna Pileggi, who directed the aforementioned Highness that you wrote, that she said that your plays are firmly rooted in research as a foundation upon which to creatively explore the what ifs of these historical figures' lives. She says this is where Carolyn's work really soared. This is while you were a student here, that through a rich and nuanced fictional exploration, Carolyn created fascinating characters and relationships that went far beyond what history tells us. So, do you have a specific, I guess, is this your milieu, so to speak? Like, is this what you like to do? Is sort of explore what ifs of historical characters?
I do love that. Yeah. So I grew up watching a lot of Masterpiece Theater on TV because
That's
we didn't
great.
have cable. And so I love sort of literary and historical things.
Yep.
Um, so that's definitely something that I've explored both in Highness and in a lot of my other future projects. Like we might talk about the subject later
Yes.
as well, which is about the daughters of King George III and a sexual assault cover-up that happened in their family. And then I've also been working on various projects now. So I have one project, Magnetic, which is a screenplay that I wrote as a student at Carnegie Mellon.
Hmm.
And that is also about Queen Elizabeth and her relationship with her physician, William Gilbert, as he tries to save her at the end of her life.
Wow.
And then I also have a Jane Austen biopic screenplay and there's this other project that I have called The Second City, which is about the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. So there's lots of different projects that I draw history from, but
Yeah.
I'm really interested in seeing how history relates to today in some way. So with every historical piece, I think about what are the connections between the past and present and how far have we come or how far have we not come since then.
Right.
Um, and then some of my other projects also explore social issues. Like I have contemporary pieces about the foreclosure crisis.
Hmm.
And then I also have a pilot script about the clerks of the Supreme Court who work for the justices and wield a lot of power behind the scenes. And that was kind of inspired by my time as a paralegal.
Oh,
So
very
right
cool.
after I
Huh.
graduated WashU, I was a paralegal for 2 years and
Was
learned a
it
lot
here in
of
St.
legal.
Louis?
No, that was actually in Pittsburgh.
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha.
And so, oh, I also worked at the law library at WashU. So
Oh,
I
nice.
kind of had that grounding from there. So, yeah, a lot of my work is either historical or some sort of social issue exploration.
Got it. The law library, my daughter, oldest stepdaughter, went to WashU, and she, as an undergrad, was in the law library a lot. And I was like, I'm not sure you're supposed to be there. But she's like, I know, it's just so, it's so quiet. She just loved that space. But yeah, so it sounds like, and I don't know if Elizabeth and the royals really fit into this, but it sounds like maybe your political science background has had some influence on what you write about. Like politics has existed forever, right? And so there's maybe a little bit of a blend in your work of what was your minor and major at WashU. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I remember taking a class from Lee Epstein about defendants' rights in the political science department and learning about all sorts of legal cases. And that was really helpful when I went to go write about the clerks of the Supreme Court because my characters had to be able to deal with legal precedents and legal research. And so knowing that background was very informative in terms of writing characters who also work in that vein. So there's been so many instances in which my WashU education has really primed me for something within my scripts, like uh, the William Gilbert script is about a doctor, and there was so much medicine on campus, and my roommate was a pre-med. So um, I think WashU is just such a holistic education
Yeah,
in so many
yeah,
ways.
yeah, yeah. Like you, I was heavily influenced by PBS growing up because we also didn't have cable. In fact, this is dating myself. We didn't have color TV. And so I would watch Bob Ross paint on a black and white television. He would say things like, I'm going to use a little blue here. And I'd be like, okay, blue. I guess he's using blue. Like, I can't tell. It's black and white. It looks like a shade of gray to me, but whatever. But anyway, yeah, I was kind of grew up on all of those great PBS shows. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about the subject. If I'm not mistaken, you wrote a HowlRound essay, which I can link actually when we publish this podcast in 2016. And you, if I'm not mistaken, it was about that play. And well, I'll let you tell the story, but there's a quote from that where you lamented that many people were upset about, was this the Brock Turner case? Am I
Yes.
am I blending plays in my head?
No, that's correct. Yes.
Okay. And that the people were obviously upset, but you decided to, I guess, channel what you learned in an acting class, and that was don't focus on feelings, perform an action. And I thought that was just beautiful. Can you talk a little bit more about the sort of origin story of that piece and how you've kind of put it out there in the world?
Sure. So I applied for the Fulbright, which is a wonderful program for people to either get a master's in a subject or to do an independent arts project. So I chose to do an independent arts project since I already had my MFA. And I proposed to write a play about the daughters of King George III, and specifically an incident where her brother allegedly raped her and then the family covered it up. And I thought that this was very relevant because at the time there were a lot of sexual assault cover-ups going on at college campuses. And so it was very much in the zeitgeist. And I thought, I really want to write a play about this. And so I applied for the Fulbright and luckily I got it. And so I was playwright in residence at a theater called Celador Theater Company in London for 10 months.
Wow.
And I just adored my time in London. Like I got to go to the archives at the Bodleian Library at Oxford and really dig through these archives and read the letters that the sisters wrote each other and read their diaries. And so through that research, then I wrote a play about it and I got to workshop it at Celador Theater Company and then do a reading of it at the Arts Theater in London. And that was a wonderful experience. And then when the Brock Turner case happened, like you said, there was all of this outrage about it. And I really wanted to use my play as some sort of protest vehicle. So I put it out there on Facebook and various social media sites that if you want to do a reading of this play as a way to protest the Brock Turner case, please join this DIY theater movement called the
Right.
Subject Project. And so a bunch of theaters signed up to do readings. And the fall when I got back, we did a number of coordinated readings on the same day. But then there were a lot of other theaters that kind of trickled on later as well. So it was really nice to use art as a way to try to influence political change.
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of been one of my focuses as an artist.
Right. I find it's so fascinating that first of all, bravo to you for doing that and like you said, DIYing your own movement that you put your work out there. I assume, for anyone that wanted to do it could do it. And as a reaction, as something to sort of perhaps sway public opinion. I also think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I find that artists, great artists like yourself, are finding, shall I say, common things about not so common things. Like that you saw a similarity between the Royals cover up and sadly what still happens on campuses today, cover ups of sexual assaults among students on campus. And you decided to kind of, I don't know, tie those together in an artistic work, which I think is so extraordinary.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I really like the Dickinson quotation that says, "Tell the truth, but tell it slant." And so I think
Hmm.
that telling it through a historical lens kind of is a way to add something to the current conversation
Yeah.
that I like exploring.
Nice, nice. This is so cool. So yeah, I found another quote I kind of liked. Someone wrote that you enjoy telling stories of ambitious people in high stakes conflicts. If that's not
Yes,
poli sci speaking for you, I don't know what is.
that's absolutely true, and that's definitely the case in my pilot script about the clerks of the Supreme Court.
Can you tell us a little more what the name of that one is and when will it perhaps be produced if you know?
Sure. So that was a project called In Chambers,
Hmm.
and I developed that project for Academy Award winning producer Kathy Schulman, who produced Crash. And it's not currently in active development
Hmm.
anymore, but hopefully, you never know, it might go into development again. You kind of have these cycles in this business where something is in development and then it no longer is, but then it can come around again 3 years later. So I
Yep.
think resilience is definitely something that the PAD teaches you as well,
Oh,
because
good.
inevitably there's ups and downs in this business. And so that's a good lesson to learn.
I love that. I love it. Yeah, it's happened. It happens in my life too. There's some things I'm like, well, I guess that's on the back burner now until it's moved to
Hmm.
the front burner again. But I often advise students that you kind of have to, and this is probably true of writers as well, like yourself, is you have to keep multiple um, things cooking on the stove at the same time. Otherwise, you'll have you'll be just sitting by the phone waiting for it to ring. And not that anyone does that anymore, but that there's things in the back burner maybe for a long time. They're on the back burner. Is that true in your line of work as well?
Absolutely. And you're always adding more irons to the fire. And some irons go cold, and some irons that you thought were cold get hot again. So it's always a juggling act.
For sure. Talk a little bit about Hollywood. Um, and as I'm saying this, I'm pretty sure anyone listening doesn't know what that is. So would you please, first of all, say what it is and how you've been so involved in it?
Sure. So Hollywood is the Hollywood Entertainment Alumni Network. And it was founded a number of years ago by Laura Bensick and Marigan Mulhern and a few others. And then when they stepped down, I was one of the co-chairs who kind of continued it. And it's been a really wonderful opportunity that the alumni office has fostered where they sponsor various events for us. So we usually have an event in late June called Biz and Brews, which is basically beer and appetizers and welcoming the new interns and the new graduates from WashU into the LA fold. And then we also have various panel events throughout the year. So we just had an event on February 22nd, which was titled Women TV Creators. And it showcased a bunch of WashU alums who are now creating TV shows. And we had, including the PAD alum Laura Bensick, formerly Laura Alexander, and Noga Landau, who is now the co-showrunner of Star Trek Starfleet Academy, as well as the past show Nancy Drew on the CW.
Hmm.
And so it was a really great way to celebrate women's voices in the industry, especially in television. Sometimes it can be harder to get your women-led shows on the air. And so it was an evening celebrating their voices, and it was sold out. And it was really a wonderful night that brought together so many WashU alums and friends. And
That sounds like an empowering and energizing night too.
absolutely. And it's so nice to have the university's support in terms of fostering the community of alumni. So WashU is not just about what you do as a student at the university, it's also about the alumni communities that you're a part of afterwards, which has been really helpful.
I hope that you come back to St. Louis sometime.
I
We
hope so
need
too. That would
we
be
need to
great.
produce one of your plays, so we have an excuse to bring you back. But I'm just so delighted to chat with you. Is there anything else that you want to mention? I have one more. Well, I guess I have a couple more questions. Um, and if you don't mind, one of them is what you would tell yourself. Let's say that there was a time machine, and you can go back in time and whisper in your own ear as an 18-year-old Carolyn Kras. What would you say to yourself? Like, would you give yourself any advice, even like, don't eat that bagel or something like, it could be silly like that, or it could be more profound. But looking back, is there anything that you wish you'd done differently?
Yeah, I think that I would try to tell myself to just enjoy being in the moment more because so much of my perspective has always been about what's next and trying to get the next opportunity or using the current opportunity to get the next opportunity, which is something that you really have to plan for as a freelance artist. But I think just kind of slowing down and enjoying the current opportunity and where you currently are and not just thinking about the future, but also really valuing the present. I think that's something I definitely would like to have done over.
Sure, sure. I think perhaps that's true of a lot of students. They're always, shall I say, not always living out their own dreams. They're just focused, so focused on getting that degree and that major and that minor, double major, and it's just like you're never going to live college again.
Mhm.
It's some of the best connections, the best friends you make in your life are this journey, and if you're too buried in the future, and your aspirations that you think you have, you don't really live, like you said, sort of enjoy the moment. So that's really, really wise advice. Anything else you want to talk about? Anything else that you'd like to sort of, I don't know, tell current students that besides enjoy the ride?
I think studying drama teaches you so many skills that are very versatile no matter what industry you work in. Like having to do project management in a production setting, that's translatable to so many different corporate settings as well, where you're managing a team of people and managing schedules and budgeting and details. I think that having to be a leader on your production teaches you leadership skills that I've now translated into being on the board of the Independent Writers Caucus, which is a group of emerging writers in LA, as well as being co-chair of Hollywood. Um, you learn creativity, which is so important now in the age of AI, where various things are being automated. The ability to think outside the box and not think like a machine thinks is a
Mm.
huge asset. So I think that no matter what you do, studying the arts has lasting value, not only for your identity as an artist, but also skills that can really benefit you in any industry.
Mm. So true. I love it. I love it. Exactly. That's AI cannot replicate creativity. AI can't make the leaps you've done, obviously, in your work as well. Blending the royals and campus community sexual assault. Like that's, I think, not something AI can do. Is make those leaps and tie those knots and really craft a piece out of it. Well, Carolyn, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. I can't wait to put this together and share it with the world. But I have to say how deeply grateful I am to you for your time. I know you're very busy. You've got tons of stuff going on in your life, and you're quite successful. And we're so, so proud of you. Myself, my colleagues, Anna Pileggi. I'll leave you with one more thing. She said, when she was talking about this particular production, Highness, she said, "We made so many wonderful discoveries throughout a rehearsal process. I knew I was dealing with a writer who would go on to do great things beyond her time at Wash U, and she has." And so I'm just so delighted to see that that you've done such great things. And while we at Wash U can't take credit, we're also just so proud of you and so happy for you in your career.
Oh, thank you so much. It was lovely to speak with you, and I'm so happy to have been invited.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. So that was it. Thank you again to Carolyn Kras for joining us on the pod, the very first pod episode of the PAD podcast. Be sure to check out pad.woostel.edu. It's our website. Check out all the wonderful things that this department is working on and doing. Also, if you're a PAD alumni or friend, simply a friend of the PAD, please request to join our LinkedIn group, PAD Alumni and Friends. We'd love to have you join us there. And if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we would very much be interested in talking to you about doing that. So there you go. Hopefully this is the beginning of a long line of wonderful podcast episodes elevating and celebrating our PAD alumni. Thank you so much.